The first rays of sunlight were barely breaking through the dense clouds over Miami when Detective Thomas Campbell received a call that would forever be etched in his memory. At the age of 45, he was used to the fact that the phone could ring at any time of the day or night. But something in the dispatcher's voice made it immediately clear. This case was going to be special. Double homicide on Alma Street, number 245, the phone rang. Uniforms are on the scene. They're waiting for detectives. Campbell dressed quickly, habitually checking that his service weapon was securely holstered. His dark skin glowed bronze under the light of the lamp. 7 years in the homicide division had taught him to get ready in minutes. 20 minutes later, he was sitting in the passenger seat of the squad car next to his partner, Detective Morgan Grant. In her 38 years, Grant was a recognized forensics expert, her analytical mind and attention to detail complementing Campbell's intuition. "What do we know about the victims?" asked Campbell, reviewing the initial information in the clipboard. "Married couple, Tamara and Ryan Burns. She's 25, he's 28. Both work for an insurance company," Grant replied, maneuvering between the morning traffic. "The bodies were discovered by a neighbor about an hour ago." Coral Gable greeted them with quiet, palm tree-lined streets. The neighborhood was considered quiet and safe, just the kind of place where young professionals bought their first homes. House number 245 stood out from the others with only yellow police tape and a cluster of emergency vehicles. The two-story colonial-style house with white columns and a red tile roof looked well-maintained. The small lawn was neatly trimmed, and the beds of tropical plants showed that the owners took good care of their home. Officer Jenkins, a young patrolman with a serious expression, met the detectives at the entrance. "The front door was ajar when the officers arrived," he reported. "No sign of forced entry. A witness, Mrs. Williams of the house opposite, reported the find at 6 o'clock this morning. We haven't touched anything except a visual inspection to confirm death." Campbell nodded. "Are the forensics team here yet?" "Yes, sir. Dr. Sanders and her team started 10 minutes ago." Stepping across the threshold, the detectives immediately noticed how much the first room had to tell. The living room looked exemplary, with a beige leather sofa facing a large flat-screen TV, a dark wood coffee table neatly tucked away, several interior design magazines and the TV remote lying on it. Grant stopped beside a bookcase. "Look here, Tom. A collection of CDs, classical music, jazz, some contemporary, and a lot of professional literature, law, insurance, finance. There were family photos on the mantelpiece." Campbell lifted one of them, Tamara and Ryan's wedding photo. Tamara was smiling broadly, her dark eyes sparkling with happiness. Ryan had his arm around her waist, looking content and protective. The wedding dress was simple but elegant, the groom's tuxedo classic. "Newlyweds," Campbell remarked, "judging from the photos, married recently." Other photos captured moments of their life together. A vacation at the beach, a house party with friends, Tamara at work in the office. All the photos spoke of a happy, successful couple. Walking through the house to the bedroom, the detectives paid attention to every detail. The kitchen was spotlessly clean, no dirty plates in the sink, countertops wiped clean, refrigerator tightly closed. On the dining table lay an unfinished dinner for two, shrimp pasta and salad, glasses of unfinished white wine. "They had dinner before they died," Grant noted. "The food hadn't had time to get very cold when they were found." Diplomas hung in the hallway. Ryan had a degree in business administration from the University of Miami, Tamara a degree in economics. Nearby were certificates of professional training in insurance. The bedroom was at the end of the hallway. The door was wide open, and from there came the muffled voices of the CSIs. When the detectives entered, they were greeted by Dr. Sanders, a woman in her 50s with attentive eyes and graying hair. "Detectives Campbell and Grant, pleased to meet you, though the circumstances are sad." The scene in the bedroom was horrifying. Tamara lay face up on the bed, arms spread apart. Her nightgown was splattered with blood. Ryan was on the floor next to the bed, dressed in house pants and a t-shirt. The blood formed dark red stains on the white carpet. "Time of death between 10 p.m. and midnight," Dr. Sanders reported. "Both have single gunshot wounds to the head, caliber believed to be .38. Campbell scrutinized the location of the bodies. "Looks like Tamara was the first victim, shot from the threshold of the room long range. Ryan may have tried to protect his wife or get close to the shooter. An overturned glass of water lay beside the bed, and the bedside table was slightly displaced. A book, a popular novel of passion and intrigue, lay on the floor. Grant carefully photographed the scene. No defensive wounds on the victims' bodies. Either they were caught off guard or they knew the killer and didn't expect an attack. "What about personal effects?" asked Campbell. "Purses? Jewelry?" "All in place," Dr. Sanders replied. "Ryan's wallet has $200 in cash, Idaho, an expensive watch on his arm. Tamara has gold jewelry, purse with bank cards. Both victims' clothes hung in the closet. Ryan's business suits, Tamara's elegant dresses and blouses, all of expensive quality, neatly hung. Tamara's dressing table was lined with expensive perfume and cosmetics. Definitely not a robbery, Campbell concluded. Someone came in with a specific purpose. CSI Geeson approached the detectives with the preliminary findings. There are shell casings missing. The shooter collected them. Also, no clear fingerprints on the doorknobs and windows. Pretty professional. "But there's something interesting," Dr. Sanders added. "They found 2 wine glasses with wine residue in the kitchen. One of them showed traces of sleeping pills." Grant frowned. "Which one?" "In Ryan's glass. Enough of a dose to make him sleepy and slow." Campbell and Grant exchanged glances. It was changing the picture of the incident. Perhaps the killer wanted to incapacitate the husband so he couldn't protect his wife. The detectives continued to look around the house. In Ryan's office, a small room on the first floor, they found a workstation organized with German punctuality. A laptop stood closed, a stack of documents lying nearby. Grant turned on the laptop. "It's not password protected. Let's see what's in here." The email contained a variety of work emails, but one caught her eye immediately. The sender was Marcus Jones, a co-worker at the same insurance company. Subject: Final warning. "Ryan, because of your mistakes, the company lost a $2.5 million contract. If you think this will go away with impunity, you are sorely mistaken. Trust me, you will regret this day." The date of shipment was 5 days ago. "A direct threat," Campbell stated. "That's already looking like a serious motive." After completing their work in the house, the detectives went out into the yard to canvass the neighbors. The day was hot, typical of a Florida summer, and the palm trees barely moved in the light breeze. Mrs. Jennifer Williams, who had discovered the bodies, lived in the house directly across the street. She was a well-preserved woman in her 60s, with neatly styled gray hair. Her small Bichon Frise dog named Bax was hanging around on a leash. "I can't believe this happened in our quiet neighborhood," she said, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief. "Tamara and Ryan were such a sweet couple." "Would you please tell me how you discovered the incident?" Campbell asked, pulling out a notepad. "I take Bax for a walk every morning at 6. It's one of the few times of day when it's not so hot yet. As we walked past their house, Bax suddenly started barking and tearing toward the house. He usually walks calmly beside me." "And what did you notice?" "The front door was ajar. At first I thought maybe they were airing out the house early in the morning, but then I saw that Ryan's car wasn't in the yard. He always parked in the same spot." Grant wrote down every word. "Was there anything unusual last night?" Mrs. Williams hesitated, stroking Bax. "Now that you ask, yes, it was quite noisy. I heard loud voices coming from their house about 10 o'clock at night. It sounded to me like they were arguing." "Could you make out the words?" "No, the windows were closed, but the voices sounded harsh, especially the man's. I thought that young people sometimes work things out, and I didn't interfere." "And there were no other sounds? Some clapping, for instance?" "Claps," Mrs. Williams frowned. "Yes, there were a few sharp noises about 11 o'clock, but car mufflers sometimes burst in our neighborhood, so I didn't pay attention." Next up was Mr. Jose Garcia, the neighbor to the right of the Burns house. He worked as a night security guard at a warehouse and had just gotten home around 11 o'clock at night. "Yeah, I saw an unfamiliar car," he confirmed. Garcia was a short, stocky man of about 45 with attentive eyes. Dark blue sedan parked right in front of their house. Older, about 10 to 12 years old. "Did you get the license plate?" "Unfortunately, no. It was dark and I was in a hurry to get home, but the car was parked there for quite a while. About half an hour, for sure." "Did you know Ryan Burns well?" Garcia shrugged. We said hello when we met, talked about the weather sometimes. Knew he worked at the insurance company downtown. Always looked tired, left early, came back late. What about Mrs. Burns? Pretty young woman, but she's gotten kind of jumpy lately. Saw her on the phone in the yard a few times, talking on the phone for a long time. Looked upset. Mrs. Roberta Smith, an elderly widow from the house across the street, told detectives of Ryan's strange behavior in recent weeks. He has become very irritable, she reported, offering the detectives iced tea on her veranda. Saw him talking loudly on the phone in the yard last week, waving his arms around, yelling something about contracts and betrayal. Trouble at work, perhaps? Suggested Grant. That's exactly the impression I got. Also, this may seem silly, but it seemed to me that something wasn't going well between Tamara and Ryan. They no longer sat together on the terrace in the evenings like they used to. On the drive back to the station, the detectives exchanged impressions. The sun had risen high, and the air conditioning in the car was running at full blast. 3 possible lines of inquiry, Campbell summarized. Professional conflict with Marcus Jones, possible family quarrel. Jones looks the most promising suspect, Grant agreed. Direct threats, strong motive, lost millions. Back at the station, they started by searching for information on Marcus Jones. The database showed he was 34 years old, single, living in an apartment in the Brickell neighborhood. No criminal record, but 3 speeding tickets in the last year. Detective Reynolds from a neighboring department shared, I know Jones. Aggressive, likes to drink. Had a bar fight a month ago over some girl. After contacting the Florida Shield Insurance Company, the detectives arranged a meeting with the Human Resources Director, Mr. Thompson, in the afternoon. The company's office was located in a 30-story building in downtown Miami. The elevator took them to the 7th floor, where they were met by a secretary in a strict suit. Mr. Thompson appeared to be a personable man in his 50s, with carefully styled hair and an expensive suit. His office was tastefully furnished, leather furniture, framed pictures, large windows overlooking the bay. This is a terrible tragedy, he began after the detectives introduced themselves. Ryan and Tamara were some of our best employees. Mr. Thompson, we're aware of a conflict between Ryan Burns and Marcus Jones. Can you elaborate? Asked Campbell. Thompson frowned, rubbing his gold pen. Yes, there was a very unpleasant situation. Marcus blamed Ryan for losing a major contract with an industrial company called Magic Towers. What happened to that contract? It was a $2.5 million insurance policy. Ryan oversaw the negotiations for almost a year. At the last minute, the client switched to a competitor because of some nuance in the terms of the policy. Grant jotted down the details. What did Jones say? He thought Ryan had shown incompetence. Said he could have kept the client himself. In the end, they even got into a fight right in the office. Really? Raised Campbell's eyebrows. When was that? Last week, Thursday afternoon, Marcus jumped Ryan in the conference room. Had to call security. I reprimanded both of them, but Marcus kept making threats. What kind of threats? Thompson stammered, apparently not wanting to repeat what he'd said. Marcus said he was going to make Ryan regret the day he started working for the company. Said he knew how to get even with him. And where is Mr. Jones now? He took a week's vacation. Supposed to be back tomorrow, Monday. After obtaining Jones's address and contact information, detectives also requested information on Tamara. Tamara worked as a secretary in the claims department, Thompson revealed. Very responsible, neat. Ryan was happy they worked at the same company. What about their relationship at work? Professional, no breaches of corporate ethics, although... Thompson hesitated. Tamara has often seemed troubled in recent weeks. Colleagues have said she's become more withdrawn. Returning to the Burns home for a final inspection, the detectives conducted a more thorough investigation. Tamara's car, a white Honda Civic that had recently been washed, was parked in the garage. The glove compartment held the usual paperwork and a few gas station receipts. But under the driver's seat, Grant found a crumpled piece of paper, a printout of medical test results. The test had been done at a private clinic 2 weeks ago. Tom, this is the result of an HIV test, she said in a serious voice. Positive. Campbell scrutinized the document. The test is in the name of Tamara Burns. That changes a lot of things. Perhaps that's why their marriage is fractured? Searching further for clues, detectives found Tamara's diary hidden under the mattress in the bedroom. The last entries were from a week ago and contained emotional outpourings. "I don't know how to tell Ryan the truth. It wasn't his fault in any way. It was my mistake, my choice. How could I have been so stupid?" read aloud Campbell. Another entry was even more cryptic. "Kay met with me yesterday. He's furious about the test results. Says I've ruined his life. I'm afraid he's capable of something terrible." Kay was clearly the initial of someone who was important to Tamara, and that person might have known about the diagnosis too. By late afternoon, the detectives had gathered enough information to put together their first theory. Back at the station, they laid out all the evidence on Campbell's desk. "So, what do we have?" began Grant, using a large clipboard to take notes. "Young married couple working for an insurance company. Murdered in their own home, most likely by someone they knew. Evidence points to several possible suspects," Campbell added. "Marcus Jones is an aggressive co-worker with a serious revenge motive. A certain Kay, possibly Tamara's lover, who may have known about her diagnosis. Let's not forget Ryan's strange behavior in recent weeks. Perhaps he found out about his wife's infidelity. Tomorrow morning we'll start by looking for Jones," Campbell decided. "If he really is in hiding, that would be a serious piece of evidence against him. And we also need to find out who this mysterious Kay is." The sun was setting over Miami, coloring the sky orange and pink. The detectives were wrapping up the first day of the investigation, sensing that the case would be more complicated than it initially seemed. Too many secrets were kept by the victims. Too many people could have a motive for murder. Campbell reviewed the crime scene photos one last time before going home. Something was bugging him. The murder looked both planned and spontaneous. The shooter knew the house, knew the habits of the victims, but had left some clues behind. "It'll be clearer tomorrow," he told himself, but his gut told him the case was just beginning, and the most unexpected revelations were yet to come. Tuesday morning, Detectives Campbell and Grant arrived at the station at first light. The Florida morning promised to be hot, but the air-conditioned police station building was cool and businesslike. "Starting with Jones' address," Campbell said, reviewing the previous day's records. "If he's really hiding, we need to find out why." Grant was already studying the new data from her colleagues in the patrol division. "Good news, Tom. Jones got home late last night. The concierge saw his car in the yard." They drove to the Marina Park apartment complex where Marcus Jones lived. High-rise glass towers rose above Biscayne Bay, reflecting the morning sun. It was a prestigious neighborhood where a square meter cost a lot. They were met in the lobby by the same concierge as the day before, an older man with a neatly trimmed mustache and a strict uniform. The name on the name tag read, Alberto Mendez. "Yes, Mr. Jones came back around 11 p.m., he confirmed. Looked tired, carrying a large gym bag. Didn't say hello as usual." "Was he alone?" clarified Campbell. "Yeah, alone. Went up to the 20th floor to his apartment." The detectives took the elevator to Jones' apartment. The corridor was marble, with paintings on the walls and dim lighting. Apartment 250 was at the end of the hallway, overlooking the bay. Campbell knocked on the door. Footsteps were heard, then a voice. "Who is it?" "Miami police detectives, Campbell and Grant. Want to talk to Marcus Jones." Long pause, then the sound of a lock turning. The door was opened by a man about 34 years old, tall and athletic. He had short curly hair, tired eyes, and an unshaven face. He was wearing a tracksuit that looked wrinkled, as if he had slept in it. "Marcus Jones?" asked Grant. "Yeah, that's me. What's this about?" "Can we come in? We have a few questions regarding your co-workers, Ryan and Tamara Burns." Jones turned noticeably pale. "What happened to them?" "I'm afraid the news is bad. They were murdered on Sunday night. We're investigating." Marcus stepped back from the door, letting the detectives inside. The apartment was spacious. Panoramic windows, modern furniture, abstract paintings on the walls. But everywhere was a mess. Scattered clothes, empty beer bottles on the coffee table, leftover food on the kitchen table. "Sit down, please," Jones said, pointing to the couch. "Would you like some coffee? Water?" "No need, thank you," Campbell replied. "Where were you Sunday night between 10 and midnight?" Jones sank into the chair opposite the detectives. "On Sunday? I was home all day. Didn't go out anywhere." Can anyone confirm that? Asked Grant. No, I've been living alone. I mean, no one was there. He rubbed his hands together nervously. Look, I know I got into a fight with Ryan at work, but I would never… I'm not a murderer. Campbell scrutinized the suspect's face. Tell us about your conflict with Ryan Burns. Jones sighed deeply. Because of his mistakes, we lost a $2.5 million contract. I worked with that client for a year, almost convinced him to sign with us, and Ryan pushed them away at the last minute with some stupid terms. And you had an argument in the office? Yeah, I was furious. Probably said some unnecessary things. He stood up and started pacing the room. But that doesn't mean I'm capable of murder. Grant wrote down every word. Mr. Jones, we are aware of your threats against Ryan. In emails you wrote that he would regret what happened. Those were just emotions. I was angry, upset. When you cool down, you realize that competing with your peers is part of the job. Ryan wasn't a bad guy, just not very experienced. Campbell stood up and walked to the window. Why did you take a vacation right after the conflict? Needed to cool down, think about it. Plus, I had the opportunity to go visit my sister in Orlando. She had just given birth, and I wanted to meet my nephew. Do you have confirmation of that trip? Jones headed over to the desk and pulled some documents out of a drawer. Here's a receipt from a motel in Orlando. I was there from Thursday through Monday. Grant studied the documents. Sunny Days Motel, check-in Thursday at 3 in the afternoon, check-out Monday at 11 in the morning. And on Sunday night, where exactly were you? At the motel, watching TV, at the bar next door ordering dinner. Lots of witnesses there. They wrote down the name of the bar and the address of the motel. Jones seemed sincere, but the detectives knew that good liars could be very convincing. Mr. Jones, how long had you known the Burns family? Asked Campbell. Ryan joined the company about a year ago. Tamara was already working in the claims department, knew them mostly through work. Any personal contact? Been to their house parties a couple times. Tamara was a great hostess, knew how to create a cozy atmosphere. After half an hour of questioning, the detectives left Jones's apartment. In the car, Grant immediately reached Orlando on the phone. Hi, this is Detective Grant with the Miami PD. We need to check on an alibi. The conversation went on for several minutes. Campbell, meanwhile, was studying a map of the city, planning his next steps. What did they say? He asked when Grant ended the call. Jones is telling the truth. Checked into the motel Thursday, checked out Monday. Bartender at a neighboring establishment remembers him, a tall black man, ordered a steak and a beer Sunday night around 9, watched the basketball game until 11. So the alibi checks out. Jones was 100 miles from Miami at the time of the murder. They returned to the station to analyze the information they'd gathered. On the board, Grant crossed out Marcus Jones's name with a red line. The first suspect is out, she stated. We need to dig deeper. Campbell spread the crime scene photos and documents on the table. Let's reanalyze what we know about the victims' personal lives. We have Tamara's secret meetings, receipts from the nightclub, love letters from John Doe K., Grant listed, plus a positive HIV test, and a final diary entry that Kay was furious about the test results. The detectives decided to investigate Tamara's personal life in more detail. They returned to the house on Alma Street, where forensics had already finished their work. In Tamara's bedroom, in a dressing table drawer, Grant discovered a cell phone that had not been noticed before. The device was hidden under several handkerchiefs. An extra phone, she said, probably for secret conversations. Turning on the device, they discovered it was locked with a password. But the list of recent calls included numbers with no names, just numbers. The most frequent number had been seen regularly over the past 2 months. The last call to it had been on the Saturday before the murder and had lasted 40 minutes. Let's run that number, Campbell decided. The phone company told them the number belonged to a prepaid SIM card registered to an assumed name. But the phone's location data showed that it had been regularly located in the South Beach area for the past few months. Further analysis of Tamara's phone revealed interesting details. In a hidden photo folder, they found snapshots of a man, athletic, dark-skinned, in his 30s. In one photo, he was wearing a bartender's uniform. Looks like our Mystery K works in the service industry, Grant observed. The messages included correspondence with someone named My K. Passionate, intimate messages. The last message was sent on Saturday. Can't hide from R anymore. He's suspicious. Need to talk. The reply came an hour later. Meet me tomorrow at the usual place. We'll work it out. The usual place could have been a nightclub where Tamara was a regular, according to the receipts. Detectives went to the Blue Moon Club. It was on Ocean Drive near the beach. Even during the day when the club was closed, the building looked stylish. Neon signs, large windows with tinted glass, a red-carpeted entrance. They were met at the service entrance by a security guard, a big man of about 45 with an army-style build. The club doesn't open until 8 p.m., he informed them. We're police detectives. Campbell and Grant showed their IDs. We need to talk to the manager or the owner. The security guard let them inside. The interior of the club was done in blue colors, hence the name. A large dance floor, 2 bars, a VIP area with couches. A few workers were cleaning up after the weekend. The manager approached them, an elegantly dressed man in his 50s with carefully styled hair. Manager Rodriguez, how can I help the police? We're investigating a murder. We're looking for information on a regular customer, Tamara Burns. Rodriguez hesitated. Tamara, yeah, I remember her. Beautiful young woman, came in often on weekends. Always ordered a martini. Did she come alone? Oh no, she had a, how shall I put it, special friend among our staff. Grant and Campbell glanced over. Can you elaborate? Caleb Carter, one of our best bartenders. Very popular with the clientele. He and Tamara, they had a close relationship. Where is Mr. Carter now? He's working the evening shifts. Supposed to be here at 7, but he didn't show up for his shift yesterday. Called in sick. Detectives wrote down Caleb's address. He lived in the Wynwood neighborhood, in a low-rise apartment complex for young people. One more question, Campbell added. Was Tamara at the club Saturday night? Rodriguez nodded. Yeah, showed up alone, looked upset, sat at the bar, drank a lot. Caleb was talking to her. They were arguing about something. What time did she leave? Late, around 2 a.m. Caleb walked her to her car. On the way to Caleb's house, the detectives discussed the new information. So, we have a secret affair between Tamara and a bartender named Caleb, Grant summarized. She contracted HIV, most likely from him. And the last encounter at the club ended in an altercation, Campbell added. The motive for the murder becomes clearer. Caleb's home was in a 3-story cream-colored building with iron balconies. The neighborhood wasn't the most prosperous. Graffiti on the walls, a few homeless people on street corners, the smell of trash in the air. Apartment number 8 was on the 2nd floor. The detectives climbed the narrow staircase and knocked on the door. No one answered. Caleb Carter! Police! Open the door! Silence. Campbell tried the doorknob. The door was locked. After contacting the building manager, they found out that Caleb had disappeared 3 days ago Sunday. Neighbors heard the door slam late in the evening, then all day Monday, there were strange noises coming from the apartment, as if someone was cleaning or packing. And Tuesday and today, complete silence, said a neighbor, Mrs. Conception. I thought he had gone on vacation. With the manager's permission, the detectives inspected the apartment. The small studio was partially emptied. Half the clothes were gone from the closet. No personal items in the bathroom. The refrigerator nearly empty. On the coffee table lay a few pictures. One showed Caleb and Tamara on the beach, smiling and tanned. Another showed them dancing at a nightclub. In the dresser drawer, Grant found receipts for medical tests. Dated a month ago. HIV test. Positive. It's clear now, Campbell said. Caleb contracted and passed the infection to Tamara. When their diagnoses came out, the relationship soured. In the kitchen, they found a notebook of notes. The handwriting was masculine, nervous. The last entries were made on Saturday. I don't know what to do. Tamara wants to tell her husband everything. Says he has a right to know. But then everyone will know I got the infection. I'd be fired. My life would be over. Another entry. She doesn't know what she's doing. I've lost everything because of this disease. Does she really think her husband will forgive her? He'll destroy us both. The last line, written in a trembling hand. Maybe there's another way out. The detectives exchanged hard looks. The picture of the incident was becoming clearer and clearer. We should put out an APB on him, Grant decided. Caleb Carter has a strong motive for murder. Back at the station, they prepared a bolo for Caleb Carter, age 30, approximately 180 centimeters tall, athletic build. Worked as a bartender at the Blue Moon nightclub. Captain Harris gathered all available detectives for a meeting. "So we have a prime suspect," Campbell began, pointing to Caleb's picture on the board. "The victim's lover who infected her with HIV. Disappeared the day of the murder." "Motive?" the captain asked. Tamara threatened to tell her husband the truth about the affair and the disease. It would have ruined Caleb's life. Loss of job, reputation, possibly criminal liability. Grant added, "Plus sleeping pills were found in Ryan's pocket. It's possible Caleb wanted to put his husband to sleep first, so he wouldn't get in the way." "What's the plan of action?" "Check all the places Carter could be hiding. Airports, train stations, motels. We canvass his acquaintances, co-workers. We're setting up surveillance at the club, see if he tries to come back." By late afternoon, a massive operation had been launched to find the fugitive. An APB was sent to all Florida law enforcement databases. Detectives decided to return to the club during their work shift to speak with Caleb's co-workers. Blue Moon had been transformed for the evening. Neon lights, pulsating music, crowds of people dancing. The air was filled with laughter, conversation, and clinking glasses. A young man in a blue shirt was working behind the bar. He was preparing cocktails with acrobatic tricks, tossing shakers into the air. "Excuse me," Grant addressed him, showing her ID. "We're police detectives. May I ask you a few questions?" The bartender stopped juggling and stared at them. "What's this about? I haven't violated anything. This isn't about you. We're interested in your co-worker, Caleb Carter." "Caleb? What happened?" "He didn't show up for his shift on Monday and he's still missing. When was the last time you saw him?" The bartender, who introduced himself as Marcos, wiped his hands with a towel. "We worked together on Saturday. Caleb looks strung out all evening." "What about his girlfriend Tamara?" "Oh, that story. Yeah, she came over on Saturday. They had a terrible fight in the back room." "You heard about what?" Marcos glanced around nervously, making sure no one was listening. "Tamara was screaming that she couldn't lie to her husband anymore, and Caleb begged her not to tell anyone about their relationship." "And then what happened?" "Tamara left in tears. Caleb was like a madman, breaking glasses, swearing. The manager almost fired him." Campbell wrote down every detail. "Did Caleb say anything about his plans for Sunday?" "No, but after his shift, he sat alone for a long time, drinking, saying something to himself. Then he got up abruptly and left." Further questioning of co-workers completed the picture. Caleb was a popular bartender, but in recent weeks had become sullen and irritable. Several witnesses confirmed his affair with Tamara and their altercation on Saturday. Returning to the station after midnight, the detectives summarized the day. "Caleb Carter is our prime suspect," Campbell stated. "Motive is clear. Opportunity was present. Behavior fits the profile. All that remains is to find him," Grant added. "Nothing in the search reports yet. He may have left the state. Or he's hiding somewhere nearby. We'll keep looking tomorrow." The case was taking shape. After the false trail with Marcus Jones, the detectives had found the real killer. All that remained was to find Caleb Carter and get a confession from him. Wednesday morning, a gray haze hung over Miami. The humidity was so high that the air seemed as thick as milk. Detectives Campbell and Grant arrived at the station at 7:30 in the morning, hoping to get an update on the search for Caleb Carter. Officer Peterson, the officer on duty, greeted them with a mug of coffee in his hand and a grim expression on his face. "No update on Carter," he reported. "Patrols have checked every bus station, train station, motel within a 50-mile radius. It's like he vanished into thin air." Campbell poured himself a coffee from the machine. "And surveillance at the club?" "On duty all night. No one suspicious." The detectives settled into their office, laying out maps of Miami and the surrounding area on the table. Grant circled red circles around possible hiding places, abandoned buildings, vacant lots, motels on the outskirts. "If Carter really is the killer, he could be behaving erratically," Campbell reasoned. "Guilt, fear, desperation, it's an explosive mix." Their musings were interrupted by the phone ringing. Grant picked up the receiver. "Detective Grant, yes, I understand. We're on our way." She hung up and turned to Campbell. "Anonymous call. A female voice reported seeing Caleb Carter outside the club last night. He was sitting in a car across the street watching the building. Interesting. Maybe he hasn't traveled far, just hiding nearby. They set off toward the Blue Moon. The club's daytime appearance was very different from its nighttime splendor. Faded neon signs, trash near the entrance, a few homeless people sleeping in the shadows. The detectives walked around the building on all sides, studying the parking lots and alleys. Behind the club was a small yard with dumpsters and a service entrance. "If he's watching the club, he's doing it for a reason," Grant observed. "Probably wants to get something important from his locker room." They decided to wait inside the clubhouse. Manager Rodriguez reluctantly let them in, warning them that the day shift only worked until 4 in the afternoon. The semi-darkness of the empty club was cool from the air conditioning. Campbell and Grant were seated behind the bar, with a clear view of the front door. The hours stretched slowly. By noon, 2 janitors and the day bartender had arrived at the club. Behind the bar, they began preparing for the evening shift, wiping glasses, restocking ice, checking alcohol. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Grant noticed movement outside. "Tom, look." A dark blue sedan stopped across the street. Campbell pulled up, peering through the car's tinted window. The car was parked under a palm tree. The driver was not visible. "Same type of car the neighbors saw the night of the murder," he reminded himself. For about 10 minutes the car didn't move. Then the door opened and a tall, dark-skinned man wearing a baseball cap and dark glasses stepped out. He looked around cautiously. "That's him," Grant whispered. "Caleb Carter." The man crossed the road and headed toward the club's service entrance. The detectives had a few seconds to think. "He thinks the club is empty," Campbell said. "Let's go around back, cut off the escape route." They walked quickly but silently through the dance area to the back door. The sound of the lock opening came a few seconds later. Caleb Carter entered the club, closing the door behind him. He removed his glasses and baseball cap, wiped his face with his hand. From up close, it was obvious he hadn't slept in days. Red eyes, unshaven face, wrinkled clothes. He headed toward the staff locker rooms, obviously knowing the way in the dark. The detectives let him enter the hallway, then carefully followed. Grant kept her hand on her holster, ready to snatch her weapon. Caleb opened one of the lockers and began pulling something out. The sound of rustling plastic indicated he was rummaging through a bag. "Caleb Carter," said Campbell sharply, turning on the hallway light. "Police! Hands up!" The reaction was instantaneous. Caleb turned around, his eyes widening with terror. In his hand he held a gun, the same one that had probably been used to kill him. "Put the gun down!" shouted Grant, snatching up her service pistol. "Put it down slowly on the floor." But Caleb wasn't listening. Something wild, desperate burned in his eyes. He raised the gun, aiming at no one in particular. "You don't understand," he shouted. "It's not what you think." Campbell began to approach slowly, holding his hands out in front of him. "Caleb, let's talk. No one wants a gunfight here." "No!" Caleb retreated toward the emergency exit. "I can't go to jail!" He turned sharply and rushed toward the exit, fumbling for the doorknob behind his back. The emergency door swung open, setting off a shrill alarm. "Follow me!" shouted Campbell, rushing in pursuit. Caleb ran out into the alley behind the club. It was a maze of trash cans, old crates, and construction debris. He jumped over the obstacles with the agility of a desperate man. The detectives ran out after him. The emergency siren was deafening, but that was the least of the problems. Caleb sprinted out onto Ocean Drive, Miami Beach's main tourist street. It was a workday, but there were still plenty of people. Tourists, bicyclists, rollerbladers. "Get out of the way!" yelled Campbell, showing his police badge. Caleb ran down the sidewalk, shoving passers-by. A woman with a stroller barely had time to bounce. A group of tourists scattered to the side as he sped past. Grant spoke into the radio, calling for backup. In pursuit of an armed suspect on Ocean Drive northbound. Male, 30 years old, dark-skinned, wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. Caleb reached the intersection with 5th Street and made a sharp right turn. It was a mistake. The road led straight to the beach, where there would be nowhere to escape. The detectives were closing the distance. Campbell was in good physical shape, and Grant ran marathons regularly. Caleb, on the other hand, looked exhausted. At the entrance to the beach, the fugitive stopped, breathing heavily. Ahead was only a sandy path leading to the ocean. Behind him, the detectives were approaching. "End of the road, Caleb!" shouted Campbell. "Surrender!" Caleb turned around. His eyes were a mixture of fear, rage, and hopelessness. He still held the gun, but his hand was shaking. "You don't understand anything," he repeated. "Tamara, she ruined my life." "Put the gun down and we'll hear your side," Grant offered, slowly approaching. A crowd of gawkers had gathered near the beach. Someone was filming what was happening on a cell phone. The sirens of reinforcements could be heard in the distance. Caleb suddenly collapsed to his knees. The gun fell out of his hands onto the sand. "I didn't mean to. God, I didn't mean to kill them." Campbell walked over quickly, holstered his weapon, and cuffed him. "Caleb Carter, you are under arrest on suspicion of murder in the double murder of Ryan and Tamara Burns." Soon reinforcements arrived. The crowd was dispersed. The scene was cordoned off. Caleb was placed in a police car for transport to the station. On the way, he sat silent, staring out the window. Only occasionally did his body shake with silent sobs. The interrogation room at the station was sterilely clean. A stainless steel table, 3 chairs, a one-way mirror on the wall. Fluorescent lights created a cool white light. Caleb was brought in a half hour after his arrest. He was offered a lawyer, but declined. "I want to tell you everything at once," he said quietly. "Can't keep it to myself anymore." The detectives turned on the tape recorder. Campbell uttered a formal sentence about the time the interview would begin and those present. "Caleb Carter, tell us what happened Sunday night," he began. Caleb uncrossed the hands clasped in front of him. His voice sounded tired but calm. "It started 6 months ago. I was working at a club, and she showed up with her friends on a Friday night. Beautiful, smiling. I didn't know she was married." He fell silent, gathering his thoughts. "We started dating. She said she was unhappy in her marriage, that her husband didn't understand her. I fell in love. Fell in love like an idiot." Grant wrote down every word. "When did you find out about your HIV status?" 2 months ago. Took a test before going to the dentist. The result was like a lightning strike." Caleb rubbed his forehead. "I knew right away where it was coming from. I didn't have any other partners, just Tamara." "And you told her?" "Yes. She got tested too, and came back positive too." Campbell leaned back in his chair. "There was an argument between you two at the club on Saturday. She said she was going to tell Ryan everything tonight, that he had a right to know the truth. I begged her to wait, to find another solution, but she was adamant." "And what happened next?" Caleb took a deep breath. "She left in tears, and I stayed, drinking until morning, all the time thinking about what would happen when my husband found out. I'd be fired. Everyone would find out." "Sunday night you went to their house?" "Yes, I wanted to ask her one last time not to tell." The room fell into silence. The air conditioner hummed monotonously. "I knew where they lived. Tamara had shown pictures of the house several times. Got there about 10:30. "Did you have a gun?" "Yes, bought it 6 months ago for self-defense. Never thought that—" He didn't finish. "Go on, Caleb." The door was open. Walking into the house, I could hear their voices from the kitchen. They were having dinner. Caleb spoke faster and faster, as if he wanted to get rid of these memories faster. The detectives waited for him to continue. "Tamara was in the bedroom. When she saw me, first she got scared, then she got angry. Started yelling at me to get out. Said she was going to tell her husband the truth tonight anyway." "And you fired?" "No, not right away." Caleb squirmed. "I begged her, said we could still make things right. But she was adamant. I said I was sure she was the one who'd infected me, but I was ready to continue our relationship. And then Ryan woke up to us screaming, started saying something." Caleb was silent for a long moment. A silence hung in the room. "I was panicking. I don't remember getting the gun. Tamara was yelling to her husband to call the police, and I shot her. And Ryan? He tried to lunge at me. I shot him again." Caleb hid his face with his hands. "God, what have I done?" Grant and Campbell exchanged glances. The story was horrible, but believable. "After the murder, what did you do?" continued Campbell's interrogation. collected the shell casings, wiped down everything I could touch, then drove home, packed up, and moved out to a friend's house in Homestead. Thought I could get out of the state. But back to the club. There was a gun in my locker. I wanted to get it back. I was stupid to leave it there. The interrogation went on for another hour. Caleb recounted every detail. His story matched the evidence and witness statements exactly. When the interrogation was over, Caleb was taken to his cell. The detective stepped out into the hallway. "Case closed," Campbell said, rubbing his tired eyes. "Yes," Grant agreed. "Murder out of jealousy, fear, and desperation. Not the most pleasant motive, but understandable." The next day, Caleb Carter was formally charged with double murder. The prosecutor felt there was enough evidence to charge him with first-degree murder. The case received widespread coverage in the local press. Journalists wrote about the bloody affair and how the secret liaison led to tragedy. Captain Harris congratulated the detectives on the successful conclusion of the case. In 3 days, they had gone from examining the crime scene to apprehending the murderer. "Good job," he said. "Quick and clean." But for Campbell and Grant, there was no sense of triumph. 3 lives had been ruined. 2 murdered and 1 killer who would spend the rest of his life in prison. Caleb Carter was later found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. At his trial, he gave a speech in which he apologized to the families of the victims. The Burns case became another sad story in the Miami Police Department's archives, a story of love, HIV, jealousy, and murder, unfortunately not so rare for a big city.